Ram Dass says the world can right itself by each of us starting with our peace, with our love, with our compassion. Today, I share the simple trick of how. Hello and welcome to Live Mindfully with Laurie Moore, the podcast that invites us all to slow down, take a deep breath, and really become present to this moment right now. I recently followed some of my own advice and took the last 2 weeks off. Everything really. I didn't teach, I didn't record the podcast, I did very little book work for the construction business with my husband. On the construction business my husband and I run. And I coincided this time off with the September school holidays here in Australia, Queensland. And I have to say, I am so glad that I did this. I barely looked at social media, I barely touched my computer, I barely touched any of my devices in fact. I meditated most days, I moved every day, whether that be biking or hiking or walking or yoga. I took hours and sometimes days to respond to texts or return phone calls, and to all the people out there who were waiting for my response, I am sorry. I know I have set a precedence of responding usually right away, but I have to be honest, this is probably going to become a common theme now. I just loved not having my phone anywhere near me. I spent all day or part of every day connected deeply with nature and in play with my kids. I watched the Blue Zone doco series on Netflix, which is incredible. It's the work of Dan Buettner, and it focuses on sharing the secret to living healthy, happy, and vital to the age of 100. Incredibly fascinating. And I also watched, actually just today, the 30-minute Netflix special on Ram Dass. And I thought of so many things that I wanted to discuss on this podcast, but nothing was really landing for me for this episode. Nothing was really driving me to record. And I thought maybe that was because you might be able to hear I have got a cold. There's an awful cold that's circulating around in my area, and I've been wheezing and sneezing and coughing nonstop. And then, as it often does, I thought of something I wanted to share. And what I want to share is this message of simplicity. We have a tendency to assume that the answer to many of our problems is complex. In addition to that, we also have a tendency to assume that knowledge that we need to the answer to our problems is to be found out there and not in here, not within. And what I've started noticing is how empowered we become when we start to think we have the answers to our problems. I'm in the middle of this 150-hour yoga teacher training, and this teacher training is going to take me to about 450 hours of study within yoga. And the main teaching in this training is that the client is the expert of the client. I am the expert of me. You are the expert of you. But we don't really think like that. We go to people, we go to doctors and psychiatrists and healers and spiritual guides, and we ask them to tell us the secret to longevity, the secret to a good life, the secret to living well. And while these people certainly assist us and absolutely have their place in our healing journey, we have to remember that we are the expert, and ultimately it is up to us to do the work. It is up to us to discover what works for us. It's up to us to unlearn unhealthy habits that deep down we know are hurting us. But we have a tendency to think things must be more complex than this. I have journaled for years, and for most of this time I follow the principles of stream of consciousness journaling, which basically means I type whatever pops into my head without much thought behind it. And it doesn't follow a logical structure or order, and it is literally a way of getting what is sitting in your mind out onto paper. And the idea behind it is you might start to see patterns or things that are consistently worrying you, or things that you are consistently concerned about. It helps you to express emotion. It also helps in generating new ideas. It's meant to be very raw and unfiltered. And for a really long time, this style of journaling has served me. But I noticed maybe a few months back now that my approach to journaling has shifted. No longer do I sit down and journal in this same way. Instead, I've started to bring more structure into it. So as I am moving through my day, I might notice a thought that just keeps popping up. Maybe it's popping up as I'm gardening or hanging out the washing or playing with the kids. It's this thought that just keeps presenting. And I think to myself, okay, this thought, this concern, this item that keeps coming to me, why? Why does it keep showing up? Now, why is the most powerful question we can ask ourselves. Why is the gateway to possibility and change? And why is the only way you are going to start to empower yourself and your ability to answer those complex questions that plague you at night? Why do I care that Sam made that comment at dinner? Why did I get so angry at Julie for spilling the milk this morning? Why is my breathing so erratic today? Why am I so worried about this project coming up? Why am I fighting with my partner right now? Why do I feel so tired today? Why do I want to impress my boss so much? Now you might think, I know the answer to these questions without the need to journal, and I am here to tell you yes. I agree with you, you do know the answer. But you know the surface level answer. What you don't know is the answer that is going to shift your perspective. The answer that it's going to reframe the situation. The answer that's going to change your behavior. It's also likely that the surface level answer doesn't really relate so much to you as it does to the other person. And that's why engaging with this tool is so powerful and so powerfully simple. The only thing you need to do is pause and ask yourself why. And then let the answers spill out of you all over the page. And the more you ponder, the deeper your mind will dig to find the answer that is actually sitting beneath all of the stuff you tell yourself, that keeps you locked in those perpetuating thought patterns, locked in those behaviors that you have deemed harmful, that keeps you from experiencing the full breadth of joy that life has to offer. Here are some of the things that I have learned about myself by using this line of questioning. I need 8 hours of sleep every night. And when I don't get it, that is when I am most likely to be mean and hurtful and hateful to myself and those that I love. I don't like being overscheduled. I become really angry when I'm running late. I don't like being scared or rushed or doing things that frighten me. I love spending time with my husband and my kids. When my calendar is out of control, they are also the first set of people I take it out on. I love my own company. I need to be really careful about what I watch, listen to, and read because it impacts my mental wellness a lot. I'm really passionate about changing this world for the better. I genuinely care about the mental, emotional, and physical well-being of everyone I come into contact with. Now, knowing these things, and these are just a few of the many things that I have learned, have helped me to steer toward good behaviors and away from bad ones. It's helped me to discover the kind of path and the kind of life that I want to lead. It's helped me to uncover different ways of handling situations where past Laurie would have done it one way, but that's not in alignment with these new things I have learned. And so now I know that I've got to do these things differently if I want to remain in my peace and remain centered. When I look at my calendar, I know I need to see more white than color. I know I need a lot of time in nature. So when I schedule catch-ups, they now tend to be picnics or hikes. Because, two birds. I make sure we have enough time to leave and arrive on time. Or what I've started doing, which works really well, is I give an approximate time of arrival. We'll be there between 11 and 11:30, for example. And how did I come up with this answer? Through journaling. And let me walk you through an example. We arrived late to something about 4 or so months ago, and I was really angry that we were there late. And I feel a little bit ashamed to say this. I can feel that shame rising in me. But when I was driving there, I started speeding because I was like, we're going to be so late. We need to get there. And I kept reminding myself how dangerous that was. And I have a little saying, people would rather you arrive late than never. And it's what I say to people when they're late to something of mine. But I was fascinated by how I was reacting to being late. And I'd never really paid attention to it before, not in the way that I was this time. I noticed that my pulse was increased. My breathing was shallow. I asked my kids not to talk to me. I was like really concentrating on driving to get there. And I was noticing that I was having this full physiological reaction to the fact that I knew that we would be late, and I was really overwhelmed. And so I banked that. I thought, righto, I'll come back to that later. And when time became available later that day, I sat down with my computer and I opened up my Word document and I asked myself, why was I so upset about being late? And the answer that came back was, I hate making people wait for me. So I said, okay, well, why? It's no big deal. No one was upset that you were late. You texted and you let the person know beforehand. And the answer came back, even so, it's rude. I told them that I would be there at a certain time. We agreed on that time and I failed to meet it. So I said, okay, whose fault was it that I was late? It was my fault. And could I have avoided being late? Yes, I could have. I wasn't organized. Not being organized is something that's a real bugbear for me. So, how do I become more organized so I am not late in the future? Shifting from the problem to how do we avoid that? And this is where it gets interesting because I don't need external ideas about this. I could Google how to be more organized and I will guarantee you that I will find 6+ million different ideas on how I can be more organized. But I didn't generate any of them. And this is important because I need to think for myself about what it is that is really going to help me. Now, it is time for me to solve the problem, because I am the person who is going to come up with the most inventive ways that will work for me. And the ideas that I came up with that work best for me were to schedule 30-minute calendar reminders or notifications, to not book additional things in before that are likely to run over, or that there's even a possibility they could run over. For example, I drop the kids to school at 8:30, but in reality, I don't leave the school until 8:45, 8:50, could even be 9. So I don't schedule anything in my calendar before 9. I hate working in the afternoon. So I do my best to schedule all work-related things in my calendar between 9 and 1 p.m. at the latest. I know this stuff about myself because I ask and I listen, and then I keep asking and I keep probing until I get to the root. And then I ask myself, well, how do we solve this problem so that this isn't something that keeps coming up again and again and again? Another example that you might have is maybe you have a glass of wine at the end of every day, but it's something that you want to change. Ask yourself why you have that glass of wine. The initial answer is going to be because my day is incredibly stressful and it's what helps me unwind. Okay, well, lots of things could help you unwind. Why choose wine? And keep asking, keep digging until you feel like you can get to the root of why it has to be wine, or why you need that thing to unwind. And then come up with solutions. Maybe an alternative is I really love pineapple and passion fruit cordial. So maybe you make yourself a pineapple and passion fruit cordial with sparkling water and you put that in your wine glass instead of having a glass of wine. And hey, you know what? Have two. Choosing something that brings you a lot of joy. Maybe instead your unwinding could be you love going for a walk with your dog. Do that. Hey, it's come to the end of the day. I feel like that glass of wine. I'm going to get the dog and I'm going to go for a walk instead. But you've got to work out what works for you. There's no point in choosing something that will work for somebody else. You won't commit to it. It has to be something that brings you joy. It has to be something that helps you unwind. And the truth is, you are the only person who is likely to come up with solutions that best suit who you are. Another one might be, why don't I commit to my exercise regime when I know that I need to and that it's really good for me? Your initial answer might be something really mean, like, it's because I'm lazy. And then you might say to yourself, really? Because you do so much every single day to achieve all of your other goals. So, it doesn't look like you're a lazy person. And you might say, well, no, I guess I'm not. Maybe I'm just unmotivated when it comes to exercise. Now that's really interesting because it's unlikely that you are unmotivated to all exercise because there are so many different forms of exercising. So maybe you need to spend some time investigating which one you actually love. Perhaps it's a team sport. Maybe it's something like tennis, walking with a group, gardening, volunteering in something physical. Maybe just the standard form of exercising that you've committed to, whatever it might be, just isn't the right one for you. So my advice today is to always start within. Start the questioning process first with yourself before taking those questions external, before taking those questions outside. And remember, you are the expert for you. No one knows you better than you have the potential of knowing yourself. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you have enjoyed it, please share it across your social media accounts and with someone who needs it. Until next week, take good care of yourself.